If you've ever been deep water fishing, there might have been times you've reeled in a fish and something wasn't right with it.
The fish is lethargic.
His eyes will start bulging.
A bloated belly, distended intestines.
And worse, when you tried to release it back into the water, it just floated away on the surface.
Oh, man.
There's your floater.
The fish was experiencing something called barotrauma. And as well as being pretty unpleasant or deadly for the fish, it can seriously damage the whole health of a fishery. But now, a new federal program is combating barotrauma deaths by empowering anglers directly with free training and free gear. This is Dive In with NOAA Fisheries. I'm John Sheehan. Today we're talking about barotrauma and a new program called Return 'em Right that's providing free training on the best practices for releasing fish suffering from barotrauma, and for anglers fishing in the Gulf of Mexico, free and ready-to-use gear that will help save these fish for another day. So, beyond not looking right, just what is barotrauma?
Barotrauma is a pressure-related injury that fish experience when being reeled up from the surface. Gases expand, organs are displaced, and they're often left bloated and unable to return to depth on their own.
That's Nick Haddad. He's the Sustainable Fisheries Communications Manager for Florida Sea Grant, one of the partner organizations responsible for Return 'em Right.
Some of the characteristics of a fish undergoing barotrauma, they're pretty evident.
And that's Sean Meehan, the Southeast Regional Recreational Fishing Coordinator for NOAA Fisheries.
You will see this large organ coming out of their mouth, which is their stomach, and that happens when the swim bladder expands and then it displaces the stomach. You often see bulging eyes. You can see the scales actually lift up from the skin. You can see sometimes the organs coming out of their vent, that is the hole on the bottom of the fish where feces and other things come out. So you'll see a lot of physical characteristics where the fish really doesn't look right.
Nick and Sean gave me a crash course in barotrauma and helped me understand just why it's so damaging to fisheries.
We're talking in the Gulf of Mexico up to 10 million discards per year. Over 1 million or more may die per year due to barotrauma.
That's a serious waste, and it's preventable. You just need the right tools and preparation to handle the situation. Enter Return 'em Right. By the way, if you're Googling this, I'm not saying return them right. It's Return 'em Right. RETURNEMRIGHT.
There's a couple different parts of the program. One of them is the education surrounding barotrauma, best fishing practices, best release practices. How can we help these fish survive release? We want to be a resource to anglers, but we also want to provide them the gear to be able to successfully release these fish.
The nice thing is that the education, it's free to everyone.
Yeah, so the training, we actually have it available via our website. So if you go to returnemright.org, and then from there we have an educational course, a short 15-minute training that goes over general best practices, how to be situationally prepared to release fish. The meat of the course is on barotrauma mitigation through descending device use, through venting techniques, and then the course concludes with a shipping form for those eligible for gear, so we can ship them their gear to their doorstep as fast as possible.
I went ahead and took the online training myself, and it really is intuitive and informative. Okay, going to returnemright.org. Get free gear. Yes, please. Now, I live in landlocked Pennsylvania, so I wasn't eligible for the free gear. I don't fish from the Gulf of Mexico. Next. I am not eligible for the gear, but I want to review best practices. Click. Okay, start review. I found the training no less interesting or valuable. And if you live in a Gulf state and fish in federal waters, go sign up and get that gear.
All right, Jeff, we just got to our fishing spot. What do I need to do to set up my rig so we can start releasing fish?
First thing you want to do once you get to the spot that you're fishing is get your release rod ready.
The format will probably be familiar. If you work in an office and have taken HR training courses, or if you needed continuing education credits. But believe me, this isn't hard to sit through like maybe some of those other classes. Recognizing when a fish is experiencing barotrauma is crucial to knowing if it needs additional help returning to depth. Click on each information icon below to learn about it. Alright, let's do it. The course took me under 20 minutes, from the moment I typed returnemright.org into my browser to the second I completed the final frame. And I took my time. The swim bladder will expand, often causing the stomach to be pushed out of the mouth of the fish. Super gross. Signs of There are some incredible videos of fish suffering from and recovering from barotrauma, and clear, actionable lessons on how to treat barotrauma using the right tools.
This red grouper survived being caught and released in 215 feet of water because of the use of a descender device.
So here are some of the things that I learned in the training. Very broadly, there are 2 ways to deal with a fish showing signs of barotrauma. Release them at depth using a descending device, or vent the fish using a hollow needle. Here's Nick and Sean again.
Descending devices are typically grouped into 3 different categories. There's your lip grip devices, which is where the device attaches to the bottom jaw of a fish. There's your inverted hook style, or there's a general term called fish elevators, which are like weighted crates or baskets that you can just lower multiple fish down to the bottom.
One of the pieces of gear you can get, again for free in the Gulf states, is called the sequelizer.
The sequelizer is a specific type of lip grip device that actually has a built-in pressure sensor that releases automatically based on a set depth. Just a small device that clips on the lower jaw, and once you lower them down, it pops open and they're free to swim off on their own.
Yeah, describe this thing for me. It's kind of incredible. I expected some, much more complicated, high technology device, and it looks kind of like a bottle opener.
It does look like a bottle opener. It has a 6-inch black cylindrical handle and a stainless steel kind of oval shape at the end that opens up and grabs the fish's jaw. It's a hydrostatic pressure trigger, and you can dial it at the top and set it, and there are other models that go even deeper, up to 300 feet. So the angler, knowing where they're going to fish, can have the right tool and release the fish, and you send him or her back home, and you give them the best chance to survive, to be caught again, to reproduce again, and maybe when it gets bigger or more desirable, it's going to be ended up for a meal for another family down the road.
We're actually doing it pre-rigged to the weight needed to bring fish back to depth as well. So all they have to do is take it out of our package, tie it onto a line, and they're pretty much ready to go right then and there.
They're also giving away free inverted hooks, which is another type of descending device.
Right, an inverted hook is, think of a large fish hook, and it's upside down, right? So the weight is tied to the eye of the hook, gravity's pointing that down. Place the hook through the lip of the fish, and then you ease it into the water head down, right? And as it goes down, its eyes are going back into its head, and then once you stop that, the fish flies off the short end of the hook.
The last type of descending device, which isn't being given away, but you can easily buy or make yourself, is a fish elevator.
This one is a simple bread basket you might see at your local grocery store or a milk crate, and there's a series of weights that are zip tied or attached to the lip of it, and you can put multiple fish into that crate, and then you flip it upside down into the water. So now this elevator is pulling these fish down to the seafloor, and there's a rope tied to the bottom of the milk crate, and once it gets to the length of that rope, it stops, the fish are recompressed, and they can just swim right out the bottom back into their habitat.
And then there's the technique of venting, which is basically puncturing a fish's swim bladder using a hollow needle like a syringe.
Venting works successfully if the fisherman or the practitioner knows exactly what they're doing, knows the anatomy of the fish. Stabbing the fish willy-nilly with a knife is not a great idea, as you can well imagine. That is not beneficial to the health of the fish. So you need to know where the swim bladder is. It's behind the pectoral fin and below the midline of the fish, if you will. You use a round needle. You don't want a knife because a knife is flat, doesn't allow gas to escape out. But venting can be very quick. And I know a number of the head boat or party boat mates, they vent because they don't have the time to send fish down on a separate fishing rod. They're very good at it because they do it every day.
Yeah, there's no doubt that a lot of captains and crew have gotten really good at venting, and they're able to do so successfully, quickly, efficiently, and get fish back in the water in a matter of seconds where it does work well. A lot of anglers aren't that experienced, and when they're not and they don't know the anatomy of the fish, they aren't able to do it quickly. They spend too much time on the surface where barotrauma actually gets worse. It can be a big problem.
And if you're less experienced at quickly and safely venting a fish, the descending devices are the way to go. And again, if you live in a Gulf state and fish in the Gulf of Mexico, you can get free pre-rigged gear, thanks to Return 'em Right.
So we are distributing a sequelizer, a standard sequelizer, which releases at 50, 100, or 150 feet of depth, pre-rigged to a 2 or 3 pound weight, and we include another inverted hook descending device. So it's 2 descending devices and the weight necessary to descend.
It's also worth noting that you're actually required by law to have a venting or descending device on your vessel if you're fishing in the Gulf. It's part of a law called the Descend Act, introduced by Congressman Garrett Graves of Louisiana.
It is a huge opportunity for us to actually ensure the sustainability of these fisheries, not just for us, but for our children and grandchildren for generations to come.
But of course, as Nick and Sean rightly point out, just following the letter of the law isn't really the point.
Just having a venting tool sitting in your cup holder is not going to directly benefit the fishery. What this program can really do is teach people why it's important, show them how to use the gear, come up with a system in place on their boat so that you can descend fish or vent them quickly, efficiently, and spend more time fishing and less time worrying about releasing the fish.
Having this gear on board, rigged and ready to go, makes you legally compliant today. Using it correctly protects fisheries for generations to come.
And speaking of protecting fisheries, the Return 'em Right training is also a good opportunity to review some best practices generally for catch and release fishing.
Minimizing handling, minimizing air exposure. I can't stress enough how important it is for all fisheries to get fish back in the water quickly. If you want a picture with a fish, keep it in the water, lift it out, grab a picture, and get it back in as quick as possible. You do want to get fish to the surface quickly. You don't want to extend fight times, especially offshore in the presence of predators, whether there's dolphin or sharks around. And one other thing is simply fishing for the fish that you can harvest. If you're in a spot where you have to weed through 15 to 20 undersized red snapper or undersized fish to get one keeper, you might want to consider moving so you don't have to discard those fish.
Yeah, I can't agree more with what Nick just said. Be prepared. You know you're going to probably release some fish, so have all your gear ready to go. So when that fish does come and you decide not to keep it, you quickly handle it. And you know, those of us in the Gulf of Mexico, summertime is really hot. In addition to being exposed, the temperature also is a stressor on these fish. So be prepared, be ready, know what you're going to do it, send the fish back home.
And if a fish looks dead, or if a fish isn't showing signs of barotrauma, is it still important to attach it to a descending device?
That's a good question. So sometimes what you can do is if you're prepared and you release a fish next to the boat, and it swims down fine on its own, that's a good indicator that at that depth you're fishing, they might not need the additional help. But you do have to watch, because sometimes you'll release them, it'll look like they'll swim down, and then they'll pop back up.
Yeah, and like Nick said earlier, use heavy enough tackle to bring the fish up so it doesn't extend all its energy on the fight, if you will. And then by letting it go, you're going to have energy for that fish to get down if it needs it. If it's extended all of its energy, it's going to go down 5-10 feet, and it's going to pop up 30 feet behind the boat. And it's going to struggle, and then a bird comes by or a shark comes by and eats it. So generally, if you're fishing in 30 feet of water, odds are you're not going to be seeing a lot of fish with barotrauma. If you're fishing 100 feet, you're going to see a fair amount of fish with barotrauma.
Return 'em Right is a project of federal bodies such as NOAA Fisheries, but also many partners across academia and citizens groups. Its origins go back to 2010. And the BP oil spill.
This project came out of the Deepwater Horizon oil spill settlement, if you will. The Deepwater Horizon spill was in 2010, affected the waters of the Gulf of Mexico and the states around the Gulf of Mexico. Of the many restoration projects, this one was created to address impacts of fish that may have died. So by fishermen being part of the solution, giving them the tools and the education, we are now saving fish that, but for these devices and but for this education, would have died. And so now we're trying to, mitigate the lost services and the lost fishes and the lost fishing days by saving fish and giving more resources and more opportunities for anglers moving forward.
You think about right now releasing a fish, you could be supporting a fishery 20 years from now for your kids or the next generation or 2 generations down the line of anglers. And it's been incredibly successful. We can't thank enough everyone who supported us, including all the state agencies, the sea grants around the Gulf, the Gulf Councils, the Commission, the ASAs, the CCAs, the NGOs, the universities. We've had an overwhelming amount of support, which has made this launch wildly successful. We've had over 5,000 anglers complete our training just in the past 3 weeks alone. So we're off to a hot start, and we're really hoping to continue to build the momentum through the summer and get anglers gear and get them educated to support our fisheries.
Nick Haddad and Sean Meehan, thanks so much for talking with me.
Pleasure. Thanks for having us. We really appreciate this opportunity to talk about a great program.
We're happy to be here, and thanks again for having us.
Nick is the Sustainable Fisheries Communications Manager for Florida Sea Grant, and Sean is the Southeast Regional Recreational Fishing Coordinator for NOAA Fisheries. To take the course, get free gear, or just learn a little more about barotrauma, visit return'emright.org. That's ReturnEmright.org. To brush up on best catch and release practices, go to our website, fisheries.noaa.gov. I'm John Sheehan, and this has been Dive In with NOAA Fisheries.